The Sports Scouting Report with Lieber King, brought to you by Harvey Autos in Shreveport, Bossier City, the name you've trusted for years. Geico, the insurance savings you expect. Supreme Chevrolet, expect more from Supreme Automotive Group in Gonzales. Bollinger Shipyards, 75 years of delivering high-quality vessels. Here's your host, Lieber King.
Listen, whatever you're driving right now, Tommy Harvey wants it. Bring it in to Harvey Subaru, Lexus of Shreveport, Bossier City, or John Harvey Toyota. They're paying big bucks for all trades right now. They'll cut you a check right there. Tell them Lee sent you.
From you, I never heard it. I never asked you, but Denny, for the editor, just say your full name and your title in school.
My name is Denny Duron. I'm the chancellor and founder of the Evangel football program in Shreveport, Louisiana, and I am the current chancellor and head coach of the Eagles.
You've been at it for a couple of days.
Yeah. Yeah, well, our first season was 1989.
But the year I got out of high school.
There you go.
The year I got out of high school.
Yeah.
Denny, I've always wanted to share to the South Louisiana people and North Louisiana people, because we all get caught up in the wins and championships only, where y'all won a few. But your story that I've heard through secondhand, people that know you, but they don't tell me the full story. It's not like you telling the story.
Okay.
But when you played at Tech and you went to the Redskins, you had an NFL career, if you wanted it, tell everybody the calling that you had and how everything came about with Evangel Christian. I mean,
Yeah.
your vision before all this started.
Okay. Well, I played at Louisiana Tech.
Yeah.
And so enjoyed my time at Louisiana Tech. Still in touch with my old teammates, and we're grandfathers and great grandfathers. Some of us now. I'm not, but I do have 21 grandchildren.
Wow.
And those were great days and great young men. Just so enjoyed my time there. When I left Tech, I was about to leave Tech. I really didn't know whether the Lord wanted me to keep playing football. The only reason I went to play football at Tech was because of the call of God on my life. And football became just a vehicle to be able to share the love of Christ with young people. So I didn't know if the Lord wanted me to continue or not. The World Football League began at that very time. Now, people don't remember the World Football League. They mix it up with the USFL and the other leagues that have been after that. But the World Football League was kind of like the American Football League. It wanted to compete head-to-head with the NFL. And so they started giving out a lot of money. In fact, we were the first league to ever give $1 million contract to a football player. And they gave several of those. They gave one to Zonka, Kick, and Warfield.
Wow.
From the Miami Dolphins back in their undefeated, season days and Super Bowl days when they were the perfect team, didn't lose a game and won that Super Bowl. Right, absolutely. And they gave $1 million to several guys. There was another guy coming out of college at that very year, and that was Danny White, who of course played for the Cowboys.
Arizona State guy.
Right, Arizona State. And so Danny had an opportunity to go to the Cowboys or go to the Memphis Southmen in the World Football League. I had an opportunity to go to the New Orleans Saints or to the Birmingham Americans of the World Football League. And Birmingham took me second in the draft. So their second choice in this, their first choice in the second round, they drafted me. Right after Wilbur Jackson, they had drafted him in the first round from the University of Alabama. And so I had no way of knowing whether I was supposed to continue. So I prayed and I just couldn't get an answer. So I went to negotiate with the World Football League first. And I felt like the sign would be if I got this amount of money as the least amount of money I could make on my contract. And really, I wanted to just go preach. I mean, that was really what was in my heart, and thought, well, this will do it. And so I wrote a figure on a piece of paper, and I put it in my pocket. And it was really a high figure for being the lowest I could make on my contract, and didn't say anything to the gentleman who was negotiating my contract. And at the end of the negotiation, they called me in, and my negotiator, who was sitting across the table from Lynn Amadi, who was our offensive coordinator, and also came to negotiate my contract, and he was on the phone with the management, and they said, "Well, Denny, here's the lowest number you can make," and they wrote it down on a piece of paper and shoved it across the desk, and it was the exact number that I had in my pocket. So I knew it was God calling me, as a sign, God calling me to go to the World Football League and to continue playing. So I did. And during that time, I had the most wonderful experience of not just playing football, but having a great impact for the Lord Jesus in that setting. So many of my teammates, gave their lives to Christ. And, in my last games in the World Football League, actually were against Danny White. We played the Southman 2 times in a row. And I remember the next to last game, I caught the first touchdown pass. And then the last game, I threw the first touchdown pass in the game because I was playing double duty. We had 38-man roster.
Yeah, small.
And so I was playing receiver and I was playing a backup quarterback role. So I finished with the World Football League, and I'd made more money than I ever dreamed that I could make during that 2 years, and feeling good about my experience there. And God had really used me there, and I was so grateful and humbled that He had used me to reach some people for His glory. And I thought, I'm done now. Now I'll go preach. And I got a call from George Allen, and he said basically, been watching you since college and would like for you to come in for a weekend for a mini camp. And he didn't offer a contract. He just said, I want you to come in for a mini camp. And so I went to Dulles training facility, there in Washington, D.C. for a weekend mini camp, they call them. And they had already signed 2 other young quarterbacks. The only position open on the team, and this was explained to me by my offense coordinator, Charlie Waller. He sat down and he said, now Denny, he used to call me Duron. He said, now Duron, the only position open on this team is the 3rd quarterback. And he said, Kilmer's number 1, and Joe, meaning Joe Theismann, is number 2.
Wow.
And Joe knows that he can't compete for Billy's position, because Billy is the number 1 quarterback. Joe's number 2. And if you were to win the job, you'd be number 3. Of course, they'd already signed 2 other young guys. And so I worked out with them. It went well. I went back home thinking, well, probably that will be it. They called me back and asked me to sign a contract. They cut the other 2 guys and brought me in as the only young guy in camp. And so I felt like this was probably going to be the easiest gig I'd ever had as far as just making the squad, because I was the only young quarterback there, and I wasn't making any money in the NFL. I was making the minimum in the NFL, and so I went to training camp, and I'm in training camp having a great time, learning so much football, enjoying that atmosphere and culture that was created there by George Allen. And, they mostly old guys, but just great people. And, I'm playing football with legends.
Was Bob Brunet there at the time?
Yes.
Now, I know Bob. Yeah.
Bob was there, absolutely. And it just, we're just having a great time. And one morning I woke up in that training camp, and I really heard the voice of the Lord, those loud thoughts that come from God that you wouldn't tell yourself, And the word I heard from God was, this is your last day.
You knew it was Him.
Yeah.
Like, this is.
Yeah, because I was having a great time. I was one of those guys that loved practice. I loved everything about the game.
You're on top of the world. You made the team.
I'm having a great time. And, they hadn't made the final cuts and all that yet, but, it was just obvious, not because I was better than everybody else, but just because I fit the slot of what they were looking for.
Yeah.
I was the only young guy there, and like I said, not making a lot of money, and so it would have been a great opportunity to be in the NFL, which is every young man's dream. But my dream was just to be used of the Lord. Ever since God touched my life as a 16-year-old to this very day, I want to do what I do for Jesus. And when it stops being about Jesus, I don't want anything to do with it. And so, I went into Coach Allen, and I just said, Coach, I'm leaving. And he said, well, why? He said, we're going to give you your big chance against Baltimore this weekend. And we were going over for a scrimmage. And I said, well, thank you, Coach. I said, I would have loved to have gone to Baltimore because my wide receiver from Louisiana Tech was playing in Baltimore. No, Roger Carr.
Roger Carr, yeah.
Yeah.
Roger.
And so I would have loved to have seen him. It would have been great. I said, the Lord has spoken to my heart. This is my last day. I said, and please understand, I don't think that God and football are contradictory. I said, in fact, throughout the last years of my life, I've used football as a platform to share Christ. I said, but God's got something else. And I said, I know it. And I knew that I would know when it was over, and it's over. And so we talked and prayed together, and he was so kind. And he told me if I changed my mind to call back. And I walked out of the Redskins camp, and I walked across the street there in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, and got in my little sports car and sat there for a minute and prayed. And I said, now, Lord, I no longer have the platform to be able to use football as ministry. I said, so put me in a position to influence others who will have that platform. And of course, that's what began to happen from that day on. I went to Springfield, Missouri for a spiritual emphasis week, where I was the speaker all week long in Springfield, Missouri. And it was during that week on a Wednesday that the president of the university walked up to me and said, man, I got a great idea. I want to start a football program here. And I said, that is a great idea. I said, do it. He said, yeah. And he said, I want it to be a Christian program. I said, that's even better. He said, I want it to be a ministry program where these kids actually go out and minister, even though they're, football players. I said, man, that's wonderful. He said, I want you to be the first coach. And I said, that's a horrible idea. I said, I'm not going to ever be a coach. And he said, will you pray about it? And I said, well, yeah, I'll pray about it, Chief. I said, but, not going to happen. And I'd known this president for a few years. I knew him when he pastored in Mobile, Alabama, and I'd preached at his church there. And so now he's the president of this university. He wants me to come work alongside him and be the first football coach. And so I prayed about it, not really thinking anything of it or that it would change my mind. And I was just flooded with the affirming Spirit of God that just let me know this was what God had for my life. And so I walked in the next day and I said, well, I can't explain this. I said, but you've got yourself a football coach. And he shook my hand and slapped me on the back, and we prayed together, and I walked out, and it didn't dawn on me till about 2 days later that I just accepted the head coaching job of a football team that didn't exist. But that became kind of my MO, is startups. And so I started that football program at Evangel University, and it's still going today. And they're very competitive, far more competitive than they were under a 24-year-old head coach back in those days.
I didn't even know this to this day. I didn't know that you started the Evangel football team at the university. Well, I've helped kids go there, and I'm like, now I know.
There you go.
Man, I didn't know that. I'm so glad you shared.
Yeah.
That's an incredible story. I mean, a lot of things have happened to me since my mom has passed 2 years ago. And, I got saved several years ago while she was battling cancer.
Praise God.
And he works, like they say, in mysterious ways.
Yeah.
To wake people up.
Yes.
Even if you're a good person.
Yeah.
To be fully dialed in.
Oh, that's so good. So
good. To hear that story, though, I'm a believer on that.
Praise God. Good.
Because things happen, and he will get your attention. If you need to listen to him, right?
That's right, man. That's it.
I mean, he comes into all our lives. But,
it's all about him.
I wanted people to hear that story because, all they do is hear about football. And, they won this week, they lost that week. But y'all had a lot. I'm just talking outside of the Evangel community. Some of the greatest high school teams I've ever seen in my life you've had at the school.
Yes.
I mean, not just great players.
To God be the glory. Yes. Yes.
Some of the greatest teams. You know, if I did and I think I'm going to do one this year, but I'm going to do like the top 30 ever, just my era,
Yeah.
right? I don't want the guys in the 60s getting mad at me.
Right.
But maybe 81 till now. And,
Yes.
and I guarantee you, there's at least 4 teams in the top 20 of all time.
Wow.
I mean, you got a Struma and all those. Those are before me, but I'm talking about the 80s on. It's just incredible when you go back and look at some of the guys, and then how many of them are coaching now?
Yeah, it's pretty extraordinary.
That learned here, got their feet wet here.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, Thomas Bachman is doing an amazing
Incredible job at Ash. Wow.
Yeah, I'm so proud of him. That is the most wonderful young man, and also just the best football coach.
Incredible coach.
I gave him a hug after our game, and I told him, I said, "You're the best football coach in Louisiana." I said, "You're amazing," and I believe that. He's just really a cut above, you know. So proud of him.
Thanks for watching the Sports Scouting Report with Lieber King.